We're rolling into week 11 of the fantasy football season. We're getting close to the fantasy playoffs. We need to get our stash running backs in check, our handcuff running backs in check as we get ready for the playoffs. Two running backs that we're going to look at in this video, Trey Benson, Jonathon Brooks. We're going to see whether or not you need them for fantasy football and which one do you prefer as your stash. Most teams can only afford one stash on the roster, sometimes two, but who are you stashing in the comments below? But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now. We're doing deep dives every day. We're looking at the waiver wire every day, trying to find those hidden gems. On top of that, like the must-start video that came out a little bit ago, we're using these videos to help you set your lineups. Click that button. Stop missing out. We are looking at Trey Benson and Jonathon Brooks. Both these guys have immense upside. Both these guys were one of the top running backs drafted in the 2024 NFL draft class. Immense talent on both sides here. And both these guys have some stuff in their prospect profile that could get us very excited in the fantasy playoffs as we project out forward for these two rookie running backs. Going over to Trey Benson, though. 3.53 yards after contact per attempt last year. Back-to-back 900-yard seasons over at Florida State. Only 23 receptions in 2 years for Florida State, but we were still getting some work in the passing game. We are a good dynamic runner. We run with power. We got some good vision. We rushed for 200 yards against Virginia Tech. Multiple 100-yard performances, and was one of the top running backs in the 2024 NFL draft class. We're looking at Jonathon Brooks here, the first running back drafted in 2024 despite the ACL issue. Second round prospect, 1,100 yards, 10 touchdowns. Would have had a little bit more if it weren't for the injury that happened late in the season. But we were also going off in a lot of games. We were used heavily in the passing game. We had 3.91 yards after contact per attempt with a full workload. We did not hit until 2023 because of Bijan Robinson being there. But when we get the opportunity, we roll. We roll 6.2 yards per carry on the season. This is a very electric running back prospect. He tore his ACL in November of 2023 and really shut the door of his rookie season. He has not emerged yet, but we're back. We're healthy to play. We're practicing. We're on bye right now. Miles Sanders is banged up. Should be back sooner than later, but they want to get a look under the hood with Jonathon Brooks. You can't look at the Carolina Panthers and say, hey, we're trying to win a Super Bowl right now. Let's test some things out. We got Chuba Hubbard locked in. Let's see if we can get an RB2 with him to share the workload in 2025. Let's test him with a little bit of work here. Trey Benson, 4.39 40-yard dash. One of the most athletic running backs in the 2024 NFL draft class. One of the most athletic running backs when it comes to size-adjusted speed, when it comes to his speed score in the entire NFL. Playing behind James Conner, who is just road dogging everybody, just like Chuba Hubbard. They're in similar situation, except for one running back's coming back from an ACL injury, and we're waiting for him to at least touch the field a little bit. Trey Benson has been touching the field, and we've been seeing a little taste of what he can do. He's popped off a little bit in some of these games. James Conner is always going to be good, always going to be a grinder, always going to be on the field. We're not expecting him to lose his job. We're not expecting Chuba to lose his job anytime soon, not even next year. But fantasy gamers do need a handcuff running back. Fantasy gamers do need lottery tickets on the back end of the roster. That is a given. That is something that needs strategized until the end of time. Chuba Hubbard's the road dog here. However, this team is using two running backs. Just Miles Sanders sucks, and his workload is not being optimized because he's not able to get the job done. So if Jonathon Brooks can hit with the workload Miles Sanders is getting, that could be something for you in fantasy football. If James Conner goes down with an injury, they're not going to share the backfield. Trey Benson and Amari Demercado are going to be options for you in fantasy football. Looking at what James Conner's doing on the field, he's zapping touches, he's zapping workload. Amari Demercado is also getting about 12.5 snaps per game. We're not ignoring him, but we're just looking at the upside of these rookies in this video. Amari Demercado, we talk about a lot in waiver wire videos. Whenever we mention Trey Benson, we make sure to mention Mario Demicado. He's being used in the passing game. He's explosive, had a few big runs. Trey Benson, 4.3 speed, has popped off a few times this year as well. You're looking at the workload here throughout the season. You're seeing 18 carries in his last 2 games. In week 6, he got 5 carries. Week 4, he got 9 carries. When James Conner does have to go out for a short bit due to getting his ankle taped up from a small issue, a hiccup on the field, I won't even say injury, just a hiccup, Trey Benson and Mario Demicado usually splits up the workload. That is something we'll probably see if James Conner goes out. But James Conner has been that dog, averaging 4.4 yards per carry, 697 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Trey Benson has been killing it with carries over Mario Demicado, something you want to see. But Demicado's been getting more work in the passing game. But 49 carries, 216 yards, 1 touchdown, 4.4 yards per carry. He's good between the tackles. I would say it's not 100% efficient, but he can find the hole. He can stretch it. He's got speed to burn. He's got that pop. He's a good overall running back. His upside is immense. It's league winning. Like I said, not 100% consistent. Not the best running back. He can be indecisive. He will leave yards out on the field. That's why he's not really stealing any workload. But he's good enough to get the job done. He's got speed. He's got some wiggle. He does have vision. It's just not 100% consistent. Chuba Hubbard's that guy here for the Carolina Panthers. How in the world is Jonathon Brooks going to get enough workload to be fantasy relevant with a guy like Chuba Hubbard? Do the Panthers really need to win games right now? Do the Panthers really need to keep rolling out Miles Sanders? Miles Sanders has an out in his contract soon. Miles Sanders, we know the story on him. We know how the Panthers feel about him due to the work rate he's receiving. And we're looking at Chuba Hubbard. Great story, 5.1 yards per carry. Miles Sanders sitting out there with 3.7 as the ugly elephant in the room. But he still gets workload in that offense week in and week out. And the reason why is because this team's smart. They have a meat shield for Chuba Hubbard. They want to use 2 running backs. And they will use 2 running backs on the field at the same time. Kind of like Tampa Bay and kind of like Detroit Lions, how they want to use their running backs interchangeably, but they want to use 2 running backs. They said this all along. They want to see how things go when it comes to the touches. They said that prior to the season, but they want to use 2 running backs. They're saying this right now, not to a huge extent, but you're not going to use it to a huge extent with Miles Sanders. And you're looking at Miles Sanders right now, day to day with an injury. He's gotten out on his contract after this year, and he's running routes, a lot of them. And it's really dependent in the game and how the game's flowing. But there's some games where he's running like 21 routes. Some games where he's running 15 routes. There's a lot of games where he's running double-digit routes. He's averaging about 11 routes per game. He's getting a lot of opportunity week in and week out. He's just not doing anything with it. This is what I'm looking at for Jonathon Brooks. Like, if Jonathon Brooks can start carving into this is something you may want on your fantasy team. A lot of people will chime in the comments about Chuba Hubbard, this, Chuba Hubbard, that. It's Miles Sanders. It's Miles Sanders, because look at the work he's getting here. A good route participation rate for a RB2, 1B running back, however you want to dice it, I don't care. But he's getting good work here. Not getting it done. Yards per carry, it sucks. We're running a lot of routes. We're not getting that many targets per route ran. That's not looking good for a running back like this. There's some games where we're getting 7 targets, 4 targets. I mean, okay on that. We're running some routes. But Miles Sanders is not a long-term threat in this offense. And now you're looking at Jonathon Brooks, and we got a sexy schedule for these running backs in the back end of the season. That's something you may want to play with or have stashed so nobody else can have on your roster. Chuba Hubbard's good. Chuba Hubbard's good. We're saying nothing but good about Chuba Hubbard. But someone in the comments will say something about that. But make sure to make fun of them back there. Chuba Hubbard's solid. 423 yards on the season. We're getting a large work rate, but a 31% snap share for Miles Sanders. 31% of the snaps and an 8% target share, maybe up to 10 with Jonathon Brooks, who will be a little bit more reliable in the receiving game, or they want to test it out a little bit more out of him. A 16% share of the rushing attempts. That could be about the same or increase. But we're seeing a good clip of opportunities here. For Miles Sanders, he's not doing anything with it. But if he was getting 4 to 4.5 yards per carry with Chuba Hubbard back there, it'd be a little bit more competitive. But Chuba Hubbard's that dude. He's going to be that dude, but they want 2 dudes, and they want to see if they got 2 dudes for 2025. They're not winning a Super Bowl right now, so why would they keep really jamming that new contract up that brick wall with every carry when you can keep it fresh next year? Chuba Hubbard's going to get the work. It's not going to reduce, and if it does, it's going to be on a small bit, but there's no way they need to use him like Kyren Williams right now, where he's running out there on 60 snaps per game, seeing a 90% share of the snaps. That's not what they're doing with Chuba Hubbard. That being said, there's work here for Jonathon Brooks to take, but we're looking at Trey Benson. Trey Benson's getting to work right now. He's an injury away from being one of the top running backs in fantasy football, or having the potential for that, but he will definitely be a top waiver wire claim. Jonathon Brooks has immense upside, and we have a spot in the fantasy playoffs in some games where he could go off, and we can definitely see where he can carve out a role, beating out Miles Sanders for his touches and opportunities. And Miles Sanders is banged up right now. They don't want to deal with that anymore. But if I had to pick one right now, the safest play would be Trey Benson. We got upside galore, just about the same amount as Jonathon Brooks. I think Jonathon Brooks is more reliable and more talented when it comes to player-to-player prospect analysis. Trey Benson right now, short-term fantasy football. You're betting on injuries to happen too. But Trey Benson right now, safer option because you're getting a little bit of something. You can see him on the field right now. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. Thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.